So as you join us, we'd love to see where you're from in the chat. Most of you have already gone ahead and done that, so that's great. Don't be shy about shouting out teachers as we go throughout today or asking questions. We know that this is the reason why a lot of you are here as attendees, is to see what this work is all about in the classroom and how it looks. And so we hope that we can do that justice today. Quick look at all the different schools and people that were a part of our program this year. And so welcome to Skills-Based Teaching for a Skills-Based Future, our soft skills showcase for 2022. We have a couple of Zoom keeping items for us. Just know that the webinar is going to be recorded. We will make sure that we send that recording to those folks who have registered and potentially use some snippets in our future marketing, but also don't be shy today. Use the chat. There's the Q&A function. A webinar gives us a lot of different options to engage, and so don't be shy about that. We will be sending a follow-up email in the next couple of days with resources and the recording. So anything that you see or hear about today that you're interested in, you can keep your eye out for that coming to you in the next couple of days. So my name is Nathan Stockman, Director of Learning Design with Youth Force NOLA. I joined Youth Force in January of 2020, and somehow this is actually my third showcase to be a part of. I am excited to do this work, and in this role, Ramel and I really work in tandem to help support educators across our city and across our region with integrating soft skills into their instruction. And to introduce himself, the man with the plan, Ramel Fuller.
All right, back on just in time. My name is Ramel Fuller, the program manager of Learning Design. Previously came from a background as a high school science teacher, specifically in physical science, and joined the Youth Force team before that as a Youth Force internship coach. So I've had a number of roles and a lot of different hats here at Youth Force, and I'm very excited to sort of present out and have the teachers present out what they found and done this year.
So today's session, we've already gone through our welcome and our roll call. We are very fortunate to have a great keynote speaker with us tonight, who we'll get to in just a moment. And then we'll talk a little bit about skill building practices. And then it'll be up to the educators to really tell their stories and give us a walk through their steps of the soft skills implementation. And then of course, there'll be opportunity for Q&A and our closing part. So what I really want to just start us off with is just understanding that this year's group of educators faced every kind of challenge you could imagine in a school year. It was still very much a COVID school year. There was a major hurricane that impacted 3 weeks of learning. And I just think all of that reminds us of those challenges that educators face. But these educators didn't let anything get in their way of their soft skill integration. And as a matter of fact, you might hear today, see this resonate, is that some of them actually thrived because of it. It gave them a clearer focus, and it gave them something to latch onto when things around were crazy. And so the beauty of the soft skills focus is that it allows you to focus on your whole student while still moving that needle on those academic and technical skill gains. And so when you find that soft skill focus, you can find victories and learning opportunities in even the most challenging situations. It is this focus of helping our young people navigate the lesson today in your class while connecting it to their future self that makes this work so special. And so today, you'll hear those stories and you hear about those strategies. And so I want to thank you sincerely, teachers, for all your work this year. It's been really fun. I want to thank the school leaders who are on the call for all of their support and allowing the autonomy that these teachers had to do this work. And of course, I want to thank the students who are not on the call, but I want to thank them because they're the ones who this is really about. All right, and so Ramel, I'd like to kick it to you to introduce our keynote speaker.
So rather than do a bunch of lift on an introduction, I'll simply say that today we have a speaker from industry by the name of Philip Hutchinson. He is the Senior Education Program Manager at Ochsner Health, and I'll allow him to tell you a little bit more about what it is that he does and to walk you through how soft skills play a part in the industry he's in and why they're important. And Philip, so I think you're good to go. If you can come off mute, I think all technical problems are solved. Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here with you all. I am an educator by trade. I spent probably about 10 or so years educating in a post-secondary career college as faculty and then as a program director, developing allied health students, pharmacy technicians primarily, but medical billers and coders, medical assistants. And I transitioned in the role of senior education program manager with Ochsner Health here in New Orleans, Louisiana, working in the pharmacy department. There, I really focus on workforce strategies for our pharmacists and pharmacy technician staff, as well as training and development and change management. So I've been there for about 3 years. I'm grateful to be here, but I think I have a dual point of view. As an educator, I definitely know what it's like to kind of prepare people for the workforce, but as an employer, I know what the workforce is looking for right now and what those soft skills are. I have a little slide if you'll. All right, so awesome. So for us, we noticed in Ochsner in our pharmacy department what we really, when we discussed the soft skills that we were looking for, what we found was there are a lot of buzzwords that we can use, but it basically came to the idea of self-awareness. And self-awareness is the concept of your knowledge of your character, your feelings, your motives, desires. This really talks about your relationship with yourself. It plays an important role in your relationship with others, in team dynamics. And so self-awareness is a really ambiguous concept. And how do you teach self-awareness or the practice of self-awareness? So as an educator, we love an acronym. So I came up with the concept of team player. And so team player means we're looking for an employee who's teachable, empathetic, accountable, and motivated. You'll see below all of those HR buzzwords that you'll see in a job description, someone who's adaptable and has analytical reasoning. I'll go through these very briefly, one by one. And then because I'm an educator, I never leave a lesson without giving you something that's applicable. So we'll talk about ways to kind of some action items that you can potentially use in your classroom for our educators. So the first one is teachable. And really that boils down to two things. It's not about how quickly you learn. It's your understanding of, one, having a desire to learn, right? When we were looking at our pharmacy technician workforce, and we're really apt right now at building that workforce. And when we talk about skills that we need, the most important one is someone who's teachable. You need to come in prepared to learn, have a desire to learn. And then two, have an understanding of how you learn, right? So those learning modalities, because that's going to determine, one, if you're in an environment that is conducive to you learning, and how quickly you are to adapt, and critical reasoning and analytical reasoning and critical thinking all play a part. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when I discuss how to implement that into the classroom. The second one is empathetic. Thank you, Leslie. The second one is empathetic. I don't really know, or how do you teach someone to be empathetic, right? And you really can't. But what you can do is you can teach someone to practice. And the way you do that is by exposing them to cultures outside of their own. And the biggest part of that, right, is being yourself in someone else's shoes. How that relates to the workforce is, we have pharmacy technicians that work in different places. But for instance, if we have a pharmacy technician working in a retail pharmacy, like a Rite Aid or a Walgreens, and they have a patient who is a little bit combative, understanding the filters in which someone receives information is really important. We might hear the same thing, but we don't interpret it the same way. And that's because it goes through several filters. Those filters include cultural filters like age, gender, race, religion, ethnicity, geographical region, and then also more personal filters about your experiences. And those are probably the most important. So with our example of someone, a pharmacy technician dealing with a patient, no one wants to come to the pharmacy. It's not a pleasant place to be. You're probably there for some health-related issue, and no one wants to be confronted with their own mortality, right? And so if I, as a pharmacy technician, tell someone, hey, your doctor has prescribed this for you, but your insurance company is not paying for it, or it'll be 2 hours before I can get it to you, although I'm trying to be personable and giving them next steps, if I understand that the filter that they're hearing this through is, I have a condition, something's wrong with me, my doctor is giving me the steps to heal that, but you're giving me an obstacle, then I won't take it personally when they might be a little bit combative. And that's really important right now because we're seeing a lot of people leave the workforce because of burnout. And having combative customers or having negative experiences, if you know that that has nothing to do with you, if we have an employee that understands that these things are not personal, if they can relate to their customers in an empathetic way, then it won't be as stressful on you, and it lessens the chance of burnout in that particular from that particular thing. So this is really important that way. And then accountability. From the dawn of time, the oldest buzzword or the oldest job description word is someone who's responsible, right? We want someone who's dependable. How that relates to our workforce is, in healthcare particularly, we work with very vulnerable populations, and nobody is fallible. So there are mistakes that can be made. We need someone who's going to be able to take ownership of their work, right? To have the self-discipline and the dependability to make sure that we are doing processes effectively, and that won't make our vulnerable population even more vulnerable. How that relates to, further relates to the employee and employment is people who are not accountable tend to lay the blame on other things. It's my manager's fault. It's my other employees' fault. It's the customer's fault. It's the process's fault. But really, we're not interested in blame. We're interested in fixing those processes, making them more effective so that the patient has a better experience. The employee has a better experience, right? The job can provide a better experience. So we need someone who's accountable. And lastly, motivated. This one I see a lot from, and I'm not going to blame this generation. Actually, it's all of us. We are being conditioned as a society to be, how should I say, have a shorter attention span. Right. So if you were to click on an article right now online, at the very top, you will probably see 5 bullet points that summarize that entire article, because people don't read anymore. You go to social media, we have to summarize complex concepts in 147 characters. We tell complete stories visually in 15 to 30-second videos. We are being conditioned to be to have shorter attention spans. But what that also does is it leads us to look for self or immediate gratification is what I'm looking for. So we are being trained that if we enter a situation, we need to be able to quickly assess if this is beneficial to us, if this is something we want to partake in. And if it doesn't give us that immediate satisfaction, we're looking for the next thing. Training allied health professionals or paraprofessionals, I would train them for several months. They would get into the work environment of the workforce, and it wouldn't look exactly like the image they would have in their mind, right? They spent several months training, but then they actually get into the workforce and they had this image of what it should be, the amount of money they should be getting paid, the amount of labor they should be experiencing, the kind of shift that they should have. And it doesn't look exactly like that picture, and they automatically want to swipe left. If an employee has a better understanding of their desires, what motivates them, then they can pick careers and they can pick jobs that better align with what they need, and they won't experience that same amount of dissatisfaction entering into the workforce. Also, if they're able to understand their long-term and short-term goals, if they enter into a workforce, if we employ them and that opportunity doesn't look exactly like the picture that they had in their mind, they're able to understand how they can use that opportunity to meet their long-term or short-term goals without immediately looking for other opportunities. So on the next slide, we'll talk about how to implement these into your classroom. Again, I said, how do you teach somebody to be teachable? That's a very difficult concept. And the reality is you don't teach someone to be teachable, but you help them identify their learning modalities. We already do this as educators. Anytime you introduce a new concept, you are introducing it on 3 different ways. You'll do a lecture, you'll do a PowerPoint presentation, a video, you will do a worksheet or a lab. And we know that people hearing the same information different ways builds on the way that they learn or their ability to learn. So introducing students to the concepts, that they're audio learners, that they're visual learners, that they're tactile learners, helping them understand their relationship to learning and which one they fit best in, will help them identify if they get into a situation of employment that is not conducive to their learning. For instance, if at orientation, I am orienting 20 new employees through a lecture or of this new skill, and then afterwards, I have an employee come and say, hey, thank you for that. I think it was a really great lecture. However, I'm more of a tactile person. Can you set up time with me later to kind of go over that and actually do it one time so that I can get the feel for it? right? That type of understanding of how you learn helps you to be adaptable in the workplace and really take ownership of the fact that it's your responsibility to make sure that you have a mastery of those concepts. Empathy comes through exposure. So the more that we challenge people to see the viewpoints of others, then the more that they will make that a habit. This could be as simple as in an English classroom asking, what is the viewpoint of the author here? What is the viewpoint of the narrator? What is the viewpoint of the other characters? In a history lesson, going beyond the facts and asking, what are some of the different things that are influencing the decision-making of the people we're studying? And then the last two, accountability, providing positive reinforcement. So if you give a deadline and say, hey, if this deadline, if you have a test that's going to prevent you in another subject that's going to prevent you from giving you all on this project, come to me beforehand, let's make a plan, or we can, make accommodations. Giving positive reinforcement for people to be accountable and promotes that habit. And then lastly, motivation comes through exposure. A 10-year-old, a 17-year-old, maybe even a 25-year-old won't be able to really tell you without a lot of work experience what they're looking for. However, if you introduce them to the concepts of the factors that motivate people when they're employed, such as money, family, free time, and then introduce them to the idea of a trade-off, that all jobs are not going to give you all of these, but if you prioritize them, you can work them to have that work-life balance that we're all looking for, maybe bringing in speakers from different types of work. It will really help them identify what motivates them and make better choices when it comes to career and jobs. So that was a really quick overview, but again, these are the things that are going to make an employee, if they can, especially if they can articulate them in a job interview, really make them what we need for them in this workforce as it currently is.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Phil. We certainly appreciate those insights and your time. And y'all, this is exactly what we've been trying to tell our students all year. We've been telling them is the connection of this, of what they're doing in class, to the work world, the world of work. And so thank you so much, Philip. It was great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm going to be sending those slides out to a ton of people. So be sure that's going to be on our social media sooner than later. So as we push forward, we want to make sure people understand why we had Philip come and speak today. It's about the shared vision that our public school graduates will not only be thriving economically, but they'll be the most sought after talent for hiring and advancement in the region's high wage and fast growing industries. So that still includes our key skill clusters of skilled crafts, health sciences, digital media IT, and our newer cluster of business services. The commonality here is that they all offer great wage and advancement opportunities, and they're in demand. And so Mateen, a few others, will make sure we get that out to you. These are great informative slides, Philip, especially for our educators. And with that, and understanding our purpose for today, I'll pass it on over to Nathan to help us understand a little bit about how Youth Force does this so we can hand it over to our educators.
So Youth Force is working to really move on this shared vision, which we call it a shared vision because it involves all the stakeholders. And so in delivering on that vision, we are trying to answer what it is that employers are seeking. And so we know that employers are looking for folks who have technical skills. We know that they're looking for people who have work experience, but most importantly, they're looking for those soft skills. And so by helping our partners deliver on those areas, we are then, in essence, helping our students reach those outcomes. And so starting with the internship program many years ago, the team really figured out how to integrate a soft skill teaching into an actual program, because it's not something that can be done on a worksheet. It has to be learned through experience. And so it's been developed collaboratively over a number of years, but the essence is that the belief that a focus on soft skill development through these meaningful experiences makes the difference. As I said, it can't be taught through a worksheet. It's not a checklist. It has to involve coaching, feedback, repetition, and all of the above. And so when we talk soft skills, I mean, Philip said it right at the start about empathy being ambiguous and some other things being ambiguous. Soft skills, there's a lot of terms thrown out there, but essentially they're skills and mindsets needed for success in life, school, and work. There's a connection. They're relevant all across. And so when you think of them, you may be thinking intrapersonal. So the things that matter inside, things like personal mindset or my own planning for my success, or even how I problem solve. They also relate interpersonally, how we get along with others, the way we view, like the way we process social awareness, communication, and collaboration. And so these areas are where we have our educators focus so that they can be intentional about soft skill development. If we target these areas here, we know that then we can help our young people develop these skills through the processes. We can give feedback and coaching to things that are very concrete. And the bottom line is that with this group of teachers targeting these skills, everybody here believes that it is our job to do this, and they will show you tonight how exactly they did it.
And so we arrive at the portion of the program you are all excited to see tonight. We are going to cover the reframe methodology. Now, the MHA framework that Nathan just explained is the basis for the language that we and a majority of our partners use to norm on soft skills. The reframe methodology that you see now on the screen is the process that our educators and youth practitioners can follow to develop students' soft skills within their content. So incorporating these practices have been shown to improve the rate of subject and content learning. And now our educators are going to walk you through these 7 steps and share a little bit about the examples that they had from this school year. First and foremost, we're going to kick off with R, or revealed target skills. That's all about identifying the skills that are critical for consistent success in your class, in your training, or whatever the context is. And Ms. Spreeder from over at Warren Easton is going to kick us off. And with that, I'll yield it over to you.
Okay, how are y'all doing tonight? Good evening. When we were deciding what skills to pick out for our classes, we teach, Mr. Russo and I teach Quest for Success, but we teach it to juniors. So it's a lot more about getting your career plan in order and getting your education plan in order, deciding what colleges you want to apply to, if that's the route you want to go. So we focused on these skills in particular because we felt like they were going to help overall. The first one is under the personal mindset bubble. So really we want kids to try and do the work first. As you know, like a lot of kids get an assignment and they're just like, I don't get it. I don't know what to do. But employers are not going to be happy with that. They're going to want their employees to go for it themselves, to try it out, ask for help if they need it, but really to persevere when they first get that assignment. And then like, if they need redirection, they can ask for that and if they need it. But we also want them to like maintain their focus on their task and not like get distracted. So that's why we chose the personal mindset skills that we were looking at. The next one is planning for success. So like I mentioned, we do a career plan and education plan in our class. And then we also do just a general, in the very beginning of the semester, student success plan, where the kids make, before they've learned anything from us, a career goal for the future, a school goal, and then a personal goal, like, you know, whether they want to work on health or relationships or something like that. So that's just about setting the goals, figuring out what you're good at and what you enjoy, and then how that matches up with your values. So really trying to teach kids to set goals that are realistic for themselves, like SMART goals. And then the other two under planning for success are about time management and monitoring your own progress. So we do a lot with like seeing how they're doing on their goals along the way and setting up timelines for how to finish you know, everything that they need to become that successful adult that they're going to be in, you know, a year after they leave our classes. And then the last one that we pull from is verbal communication for our Quest for Success class. We do a lot of guest speakers, usually about 2 a week in the beginning of the semester when we're learning about different careers. And then we also, at the end of the semester, the kids get to choose a professional to do a one-on-one interview to learn about a career from someone working in that. So that's really about listening, building those listening skills so they can be active listeners. They learn to note take while people are talking. They learn to reflect after they've listened to those guest speakers. And then they also learn a lot about questioning, like writing engaging questions and learning to actually at the end question each other when they present about their one-on-one interviews. The kids have to ask each other questions and really help those students clarify exactly what it is they want to be when they grow up and how they're going to get there. So it's really nice to see at the end with that culminating project how they've learned to like help others figure out where they're going by using the questioning skills that they learned in class. So that's it for me.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Francesco Russo. I'm also a teacher at Warren Easton who teaches Quest for Success, entrepreneurship. I coordinate senior internships and am co-founding our rugby team. So what I'd like to talk about is sort of how I selected the skills I did. And to start, I want to tell just a really short story. This is my first year teaching and first year at Easton. So when it came time to coordinate internships, I really didn't have a lot of connections. So I went through a process of cold calling employers, cold emailing, showing students how to email themselves, network via LinkedIn, talk to their family, and trying to get my seniors internships ended up with me walking up and down Broad Street right by Warren Easton, going into all these businesses, giving my own elevator pitch to communicate what I needed. So the relevance of these skills is still being proven to me in my own profession, which is awesome. With these skills, communication and planning for success, they align extremely well with entrepreneurship. So these are specifically my skills that I focused on with my entrepreneurship students. I also see a lot of apprehension with students speaking even just in front of their own peers in the classroom. So it seemed like we can work on these skills because they align with the content. So we should, and we're going to. It's also worth saying that having Spreeder to work with, the alignment is wonderful. Students get reinforcement if they take Quest and then entrepreneurship, continuity, and it's wonderful to be able to collab with Ms. Spreeder. So the things that I suppose the tools or methods that I think worked best were real world simulations or experiences. So you see these pictures are from an engagement we had with the New Orleans Pelicans Saints organization, where our students were able to go talk to professionals, meet them, people in marketing, people in announcing or operations, just to sort of see the different careers that are available to them in sports and actually plan or practice communication. Things that, I struggled with were student buy-in and engagement. So having real world experiences, that's when I saw eyes light up and the students were, making meaning, seeing the relevance, and recognizing the value of these skills and why we work on them. When our students interview their mentors, when they have field experiences like this, when we do negotiation simulations in class where students take on a role and negotiate with each other or practice giving business pitches, these are the things I definitely want to increase and continue to focus on, because when the students value the skills, they progress so much more. So that's pretty much it for me. I definitely, as I said, I want to sort of implement this more, present it to students more, keep it in the rubrics more, and really get them in charge of their own learning and growth as they see the value of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Russo and Ms. Spreeder. And Russo, that is definitely soft skills in action, as you described. That is outstanding. And we love the work going on with our Warren Easton Eagles. All right, so the next stage of Reframe happens to be something we call establishing performance evidence. And so this is where you make transparent what it is you want your students to be able to do, so that there's no myth about how they're going to demonstrate these soft skills. And so we're going to jump. I'm just checking our room. I know Miss Erica, Miss Daniels had an issue. Oh, there's Miss Erica. All right, Erica is here. All right, passing it to Erica to talk through what she did at New Harmony High.
Good evening. My name is Erica Daniels. I'm a U.S. history teacher at New Harmony High. This year I worked on the communication soft skill building block. I started with communication skill 1 on the Power Skills Index, which states that it organizes information that serves the purpose of message, context, and audience. To be transparent, the students and I started in December. We got a late start. I didn't join the skills team until sometime around then, but I didn't have an opportunity to really ask them what they wanted and preferred to choose to do. However, by that time, I realized that they needed assistance organizing the messaging. So their short essay answers weren't clear. They used tons of pronouns and often didn't answer all of their questions. Being an EOC course, that stressed me out a little bit. And it became very apparent that they needed support in the area. So I researched the communication skills thoroughly and found that most responses shared certain components. So from there, I created a lesson and I taught it to them. I created a rubric, which I received assistance in the format from Caitlin, my instructional coach. But the information I used was from my research. I also modeled the lesson for them to show them what the correct responses should look like. So I wanted them to see what it looked like before they started doing their own written responses. After teaching the students the components and showing them the rubrics, they were set to go, and we started by January all the way. Some of the things we struggled with were natural disasters, COVID, and large scales of absences. But ultimately, I would say that I found that it was a success about a month ago, whenever I realized that most of my students were clearly and completely and factually answering all of their short essay questions correctly. I also didn't have to remind them to refer back to their soft skills lesson that they had a copy of, or to even look at their rubric. So about 73% of my students answered in a proficient manner. And also after the EOC, I had a student come up to me and tell me that she really appreciated the format and that it really helped her quickly organize her answers for the EOC. So I'd say ultimately it's been a success.
So great, so great. Thank you so much, Erica. That is an awesome testament. And passing it right along to Mr. Boston from Warren Easton, who also had a journey on establishing performance evidence.
Hey everybody, my name is Brandon Boston. I'm a ninth grade Algebra 1 teacher at Warren Easton. My soft skill was under the personal mindset umbrella, and it was to have students attempt to complete their task independently before asking help. So my story starts with just me feeling like I was doing all of the heavy lifting for all of my 6 years teaching until I finally made it to UForce NOLA. And it was great to start to utilize these soft skills to kind of like get some of that burden off my back. So just to give you a little bit of background, I teach a lesson, and within the lesson, I try to give my students about 40 to 50 minutes of independent practice. And I noticed that like a lot of students were just sitting idle for like 10, 15 minutes. And I just was asking, like, what are you doing? They were like, oh, I'm waiting for you to help me out. And I'm like, well, you got all these examples in your notes. You got this person next to you that can help you out, and these other resources within the software that we're using that can help you out as well. Like, what are you doing? So I eventually ended up creating this productive struggle rubric that shows students kind of the behaviors that I'm looking for when we are in independent practice. And in the left side of the rubric, as you can see that, it highlights some of the behaviors that I've already discussed, such as students being disengaged or students copying off other students. But then also on the opposite side is students who are utilizing their notes from the lesson that we just did to complete assignments, as well as using the resources within the software that we use for independent practice, and just asking guided questions in general. And then with the productive struggle rubric, I also created a checklist that I displayed every single day during our independent practice. And on this checklist, the first thing was, if you find yourself at a hurdle, check your notes. If that don't work, let's go ahead and look at the view an example button that is within the software that we use for independent practice that gives them step-by-step process of how to solve the problem out. If that doesn't work, the next step was to then ask somebody for help, one of your classmates. And we role played in class when I was rolling this out, like how do you properly ask for help? Now, hey, yo, what's the answer to number 10? I used to get that a lot, but it turned into like, hey, can you help me or can you show me and such? Or sometimes I give them an eye if I seen that they were attempting to figure out or copy the answer, say, no, I was about to say, can you show me this? And then the last stop on the checklist was definitely, if none of those things work, come ask me for help. And the success of this turned into like students using their notes more often that I saw. I also saw students saying things like, hey, I just did question number 15. I can show you how to do it, and things of that nature. So it really changed that culture and, took a lot of the work from my end and placed it on their side of the court. And as you can see on the slide here, like back in October, I only had 48% of my students completing this assignment, whereas in March, I have 74% students doing this, completing assignments. So I would say that it was a big success, and I look forward to utilizing this in the future.
Brandon, that is excellent work. Thank you both for sharing there. That is outstanding. And we bucketed these two together, Brandon and Erica, for a certain reason. They both are teaching testing courses, LEAP 2025 classes, Algebra 1 and US History, and they both figured out how to use soft skills to improve their students' performance. So it can be done. All right, moving along. Let's see.
So next, our third step is focused activity design or focused lesson design. And once you've clarified the skills that are going to be important for your young people, and you've given them some way to understand their performance and evidence and to measure themselves and for you to measure them, then you've got to make sure your lesson or your activity actually gives them the opportunity to practice those skills. So here we have some teachers that are going to show you the different ways that they were giving their young people an opportunity to practice the skills that were their focus. And so we're going over to Greg at Operation Spark. Take it away, Greg.
Hey, y'all. I'm Greg Thompson. I am an instructor and software developer at Operation Spark. Before my time at Operation Spark, I taught all kinds of subjects at Einstein Charter School for like 4 years. So I do have that background in education. And at Operation Spark, we teach software engineering, and we kind of like start at the most basic skills in coding, all the way up to learning and applying industry-used technologies in our more advanced classes, and prepare students to go straight into careers in tech. So the soft skill that we focused on this year was one from the personal mindset domain. And specifically, it's the skill that students are able to follow directions that are required by the task that they're working on. And if you have ever been in tech or ever delved into tech, you know that there are a whole lot of directions and documentation and just kind of like things you've got to read and be able to understand to kind of like get from knowing a little bit to understanding how to apply and learn more. So that's kind of like why we dug into this particular skill, because it does come up a lot in industry. And kind of just piggying back off this skill, we chose 3 kind of like smaller skills that are related to this soft skill that are expected of software engineers working in industry. And those skills that we looked at are following best practices of coding, understanding existing code and documentation, and clarifying any misunderstandings around instructions or documentation that's been provided. So what we did, we took all of these skills and these expectations, and we developed an activity that would engage students in conversation about code that they're writing and working on, and strategies that they use to break down instructions when working on projects in our class. So what we did was we developed a set of verbalization activities that allow students to demonstrate their industry-aligned skills and also receive feedback on how those skills can be improved as they work on projects in the future. So this graphic kind of shows how the skills they're working on are developed, and then they get feedback and they can implement that feedback in the future. So the first part of this verbalization activity is that students are all given a set of questions about a single project. And they can review those questions before they engage with the instructors in that verbalization activity. So next is that actual verbalization where students have one-to-one discussions with instructors. They're able to verbalize the tools and strategies they use to work through some of the trickier parts of the projects, but also some of the more detailed parts of the projects that are specific to industry and working in tech. So in those one-to-one discussions with instructors, students received real-time feedback on the skills that they talked about. And then kind of finally, students are able to apply that feedback when they're working on future projects. And what this process does, if you can hop back for a second, sorry, Nathan. It gives students the opportunity to focus in on developing soft skills while they're also building their software skills. And it also further highlights to students how they're like, just how technical skills and like job soft skills are related. And kind of like some takeaways for students from this is that they're really able to like just kind of take away a lot from that one-to-one FaceTime they got with instructors. I saw a lot of students that were like able to fix small things that they were doing wrong, such as like documenting their work. There's ways to do that when you're working in software, and kind of like students at the beginning of the class didn't really understand that. So through these like activities and discussions with instructors, students were able to get a better grasp of a lot of those small things that need to be done when you're working in tech and working in software. So what we did this semester is we implemented 2 rounds of these verbalization activities for 2 different projects. We're currently wrapping up the second one in our classes, but for that first verbalization activity, 23 students responded to that, to like kind of worked with us and had discussions with us. And 11 of those students, or 48% of those students, performed at a skilled or expert level in the majority of skills that we measured. And our goal for that second verbalization activity is to hit 70%. And just looking at impacts of these activities, students have been able to reflect on their code, and in a lot of cases, just like fix or improve how they're coding and working in that moment. Students have also been able to reflect on strategies that they use as they read through documentation, as they're interacting with all of these technical directions and instructions that they're given and working with when they're working on projects. And then finally, we're really hoping that these verbalization activities lead to an increase in IBC attainment and also just increased confidence for students that take our courses. And finally, just to wrap up, what we're looking at for next steps here are just ways to improve how we give feedback to students, so that they can take written feedback and just have that instead of just verbal feedback. And also we're looking at how we can create more activities in the same vein for different types of assignments for our classes. And that kind of wraps up for what we've done with these activities this semester and this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you.
And passing it over to Erin Liero from the Net Central City.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to be talking about my film studies advisory, which was a project-based interdisciplinary class where students made short films in teams. So my soft skills are on the table there. Basically, I wanted students to be able to choose topics for research and for their films that were interesting to them. So setting relevant goals, knowing oneself and one's interests. I wanted them to be able to complete projects in a timely manner in a team. So that's sort of project management, progress tracking target. And then basically teamwork, helping others, because it was a group project and students really struggle sometimes with being open to collaboration. Next slide. So I kind of broke it down by each of those targets and the activities that I did for each one. So for setting relevant goals, students chose one of those 3 soft skills that they wanted to focus on. They put it on a sticky note and the soft skills were up in the room and posted. They also were on a class website that we shared and all had access to. And then we used that class website to brainstorm topics for films. And students did interest inventories to kind of identify where they fell within fiction versus documentary, what they were more interested in working on for their project. Once they kind of separated into groups, they created trailers together which is kind of like a group visioning process. Like they create a visualized goal, and they use all the skills involved in the project in the process of making the trailer. And then as well as the group project, they had individual components, like each student had an individual film studies learning target plan where they had to learn about a learning target like indirect or direct characterization, or how filmmakers use framing and visual composition. They chose some area to focus on and teach the class about and give examples, and they added that to our class website. They also chose a topic, like a topical research topic connected to their films topic to do like a mini research project on. So all of those were intended to develop students' knowledge about what they're interested in, and help them sort of invest in a project that they care about. As far as, well, teamwork, go back one. As far as teamwork, helping others, they had group meetings where they had to accomplish certain goals, and you can see the checklist on the lower right part. They had to kind of go through these checklists at the end of those meetings to evaluate their own performance as a team member. They had production companies where they came up with a logo and a group name to sort of identify with each other and with the project. And then on the next page, for project management, we ended up really using and benefiting from Scrum charts. They're very simple Scrum charts, but they had a to do, in progress, and done categories. And then we used sticky notes students had to write their name, what they were going to do, and a date that it was due by on a sticky note in the appropriate category. And that really helped keep everybody accountable and the project moving forward. We had rubrics for how to use the Scrum chart. We also had like summative rubrics for midterms and the final exhibition. And the rubrics evaluated students on both process and product. The process rubric was worth 67% of their grade, and the product as a team product was worth 33% of their grade. And the process rubric covered their soft skills development and their learning targets and their research and their individual components, versus the product was about the film and its certain criteria that the film had to meet. And then after each, so usually the exit ticket involved a reflection on whatever stage of the project we were in. So there was a lot of just project work for planning the film, filming it, and editing it. So the exit tickets kind of always involved a reflection on how they were working. And then there was like a midterm and a final reflection that kind of took a step back and connected it to why we're doing it, and where you are on the rubrics and stuff like that. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. And I just want to mention, I've seen it a little bit in the chat and on the Q&A. We will be compiling these resources. We just want to make sure before we send them out that the links are working and all of that. We don't want to have a bunch of people getting like share requests. We got to get that right, and we'll share that out as part of our follow-up, because Erin has some great tools that she has utilized, as do other teachers. All right. Okay, the next part of the Reframe methodology is assessment, but thinking of assessment through feedback. So we don't just slap a rating or slap a grade on something without helping move the needle on that trajectory towards proficiency. And so it's all about giving meaningful feedback that finds the students where they are and moves the needle on them. And we had this demonstrated throughout our entire process. One of the people that we like to showcase through this work is from Next Level NOLA, and that's Lori Ivory, who did an outstanding job this year with her program. And so to tell us more about it, Miss Lori Ivory.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So yes, I'm Lori and I teach power skills, which are soft skills at Next Level NOLA. And the way that we were able to really integrate these soft skills was definitely through our real world learning classes and our adulting classes. And we also have a lot of different experiences. So this year we focused on a lot of the power skills, as you can see: planning for success, personal mindset, problem solving, communication, and purpose seeking. Some of the ways that we were able to do this were through our strategy. So as I said, I am a coach, so that means I provide one-on-one support, and that is a great way for me to follow up with whatever's taught in real world learning. As a coach, I'm able to check in with fellows and make sure that if they say they're going to do something, how they feel about it, if they're monitoring their own progress, and then they're able to reflect on it and then make the changes so that they can be successful. We also have guest speakers and experience trips. And I feel like this is a really great way to really integrate soft skills, and whatever the fellows are learning, they're able to implement that in person with these experiences. So just to name a few, we've had some civic engagement events, which is a great way for fellows to not only network with public leaders in the city, but they're also able to build their communication. They're able to ask those questions both writtenly or in or orally when they're meeting with some of the speakers or some of the policymakers. Some other things that we worked on were planning for success, and they were able to excel at planning for success because of the use of organizers and trackers. And a way that we were able to measure their success is whatever pathway the fellow was on. So we have fellows who are in the trade pathway who have to show up to their apprenticeships on time if it's for ironwork or carpentry. We have fellows on the coding pathway who have to work on their communication. I believe someone from OpSpark, Greg, you were talking about this. And then another way to measure their power skills was with their planning for success with SNU, so their project completion. And a great way for us to really make sure that fellows understood what was being taught was really through the one-on-one feedback, as Nathan mentioned. So I will like to say that 83% of fellows in the program were able to grow in their power skills, and they were able to do that from the one-on-ones, from the real world learning classes. And that's a really great impact that they were able to have. Something that I would like to do moving forward is to have more self-assessments. I believe we had about 3 self-assessments this year, but it would be really great for the fellows to use the power skills and their attributes after each bundle of lesson. That way they can reflect on how they did before and after. They can name their growth instead of it being something that I would monitor. So thank you.
Thank you. That was excellent. Oh, you're muted, Ramel.
It's gonna happen every once in a while. Sorry about that, y'all. 2 years of Zoom meetings and still doing that sometimes. So we're down to magnifying recognition. And so what happens after you get feedback, like Miss Ivory explained? Students go do the work, right? But then we also have to make sure we do some warm and fuzzy work here, right? Everybody, including young people, want to feel good about the work they're doing. So some of that comes with validation and recognition of when young people are executing their skills really well. So here to talk about that in the context of their work this year, we have Tim as a transition specialist. Tim, I'll let you take it away and explain everything there.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Tim Spahn Sattler, pronouns he, him. Born and raised by Los Angeles and now living here in New Orleans, aka Bulbancha, home of the Chitimacha and the Choctaw, as well as a number of other tribes before us. I say this because it's important to ground our work in the places and the people that inform us, that inspire us, that we need to reconcile. So when I think about what I wanted to do with my students, I wanted to help make sure that the soft skills approach was done in a way that preserved their agency and gave them choice in the journey. I work with young people who have IEPs and 504s, predominantly 11th and 12th graders who are transitioning out, and I do a lot of the transition work with them. So what I started out with was a process to allow them to complete some skills self-assessments, looking at the power skills and being able to kind of gauge where their successes and where their challenges were, right? What this did was this actually allowed them to first identify, wait a second, I actually have some great experience already. And I'm not just starting from scratch when I'm learning something. So this is helping them connect the dots that their lived experiences matter and are relevant towards moving forward. Then after they completed that self-assessment, I asked them to kind of identify which of the power skills that they looked at were their greatest strengths, which were their greatest weaknesses, which were the things that they were most passionate about, and which of the ones were most relevant to their career. So now they're starting to think, oh, how does this have to do with my future, right? And the whole purpose of this is to help them develop IEP transition goals, which is the second step in my cycle. So I try and help them get a soft skills goal. I try and help them get a technical skills goal by having them analyze CTE standards in their desired career pathway and identifying something they want to do. And then I help them get identify a student independent learning target based on whatever their interest was and what they felt like wasn't captured in those other areas that they wanted to work on. So a lot of them were like, I need a driver's license. So that became a spot where it didn't fit into the other categories, but they got to choose where it was at. Then over the course, step number 3 was developing trackers and feedback sources. So what I do with a lot of my students is I try and get them in work-based learning experiences or internships or other independent passion projects related to their career goals. So that way, and then, provide coaching through them as they navigate those issues. So as we're going through that process, we already identified 3 skills that they know they want to work on. And so they started to do it. And then finally, we review this data with the whole IEP team. And in an ideal situation, we do that through a process called student-led conferences, where we have the young people actually present the data to their essential allies, to their teachers and members of that IEP team. So that way they're in charge of their learning. We could go on to the next slide. So this captures some of the things I was just talking about. Let's move on to the third slide. And I just kind of want to close by recognizing that integrating this into the IEP process is tough, right? And that is something that you got to get the whole team behind, right? It's like you can't teach soft skills out of context. And the more places and the more conversations they're having within their various domains of their life that talk about these things, the better. But that means trying to do a lot of alignment of your teams to make that happen. Some of the glows I had was students were open to this process and the SPED staff were appreciative of it, but we didn't have the space to be able to really do the work. So I think we need to try and figure out how we can integrate soft skills or whatever our school-wide initiatives are, whether it's reading interventions, whether it's habits of mind, all of those things. We can't just do it in isolation, but we got to figure out how to do it as a team. Some of the grows I had, the language around soft skills was confusing to some students, and especially when you're integrating the power skills and the higher ability skills, that could use some work. And I know we want to do a little bit more work on our trackers to switch from language or mastery, which needs to be decolonized and unsettled given its history and association with slavery. And I want to try and transition that into Bloom's taxonomy. Thank you for your time.
Tim, thank you so much. Very well stated. Excellent.
I feel like I wanted to do a mic drop right in there. Well done and well closed.
All right, so this brings us to the end of our reframe methodology, which is exploring meaning making. And so when we think about exploring meaning making, it's more than just like an exciting intro to your lesson and getting the kids fired up because you did a funny video. It's about actually connecting themselves to the work they're doing today and how it relates to their future self, how it relates to their goals, and how they're seeing this connection. And so to do this, it involves a lot of really like thinking big picture all the time. And so to tell us a little bit more about that, we'd like to hear from Annalie Jackson from Livingston Collegiate.
Hi, everyone. The soft skill I chose to focus on in my classroom was planning for success. Specifically, students demonstrate a belief that their actions impact their goals. And I wanted to even further show students that their mindsets impact their actions, which then impact their goals. And so to do that, I wanted to have data to actually be able to show students how their mindsets affect their actions. So I would tell them, hey, this is what we're about to do. This is our activity. This is our goal, and kind of give directions. Then have students create a pre-survey and tell me, hey, like, I think this is going to be helpful, like 1 through 5, and tell me why. Then we would actually do the activity. At the end, they would complete a post survey. And I said, okay, now that you've actually completed the activity, how helpful was it actually? How relevant was it to you? Also rank the effort that you put in to find meaning and purpose in this activity for yourself. It was really cool to see students start to make the connections to the survey. That's an area where I have some growth, but you can see this quote on the left. A student said, students' mindsets in the pre-survey impact their actions because it shows how much energy they're going to bring to the project. So you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So once I had pre and post survey data, my goal was to actually show this data to students so they could visually see, oh, this is how students' mindsets before in their pre-survey impacted what they said and did in their post-survey and the efforts that they actually self-reported. And to do this, I kind of color coded through. I said, I don't think this student took this very seriously. That's gray. I need to have a conversation with them later. We're not going to pay attention to that. I think they saw the relevance in the assignment. They're green. I don't think that they saw the relevance. They're red. And I think they're kind of on the fence, like really close. They're yellow. And had students complete some reflection questions on which student they think actually got the most out of the project after I've removed names and made it anonymous. So some challenges in this was one, absences, like we know, like making sure that actually getting those surveys completed and following up with students, I needed a better system for that. 2, it's somewhat time intensive to look at the data side by side and then bring that data back to students. So I didn't get the consistency that I wanted with that piece as much. And then lastly, ironically, trying to have students see the relevance in the assignments that they're already doing. I got a lot of students be like, well, why are we doing these surveys anyways? And so like constantly reinstating, like, this is what the survey is for. This is what it's helping us see. We're trying to track our mindset and we're trying to pay attention to our soft skills here. And that's an area for growth for me, for sure. Just like trying to make sure that this happened and we had class time for it. But ultimately I saw like the students who tended to be really positive about the assignment usually saw the relevance like all the way through, and students could start to see that in their reflections looking at survey responses. So another student quote, like, the bigger the effort, the bigger the outcome. And so moving forward, I would definitely want to do this with more consistency and really spend a little bit more time on like making sure students understand what the surveys can help us with. But it really did help me like get a sense of how students were doing in my class and like where I wanted to check in with students, and maybe like these students consistently don't see the relevance. So I need to have more conversations and have more buy-in with them, specifically one-on-one. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Annalie. That is an outstanding project, and the way you went about it was, I mean, I'm very impressed. So hopefully you get to take some of those learnings next year and apply them and have some really great outcomes. So passing the torch to Amanda Murray with New Harmony High.
Hi guys, I'm Amanda Murray and I'm the senior capstone and project management program lead at New Harmony. So this year was New Harmony's first year with a rising class of seniors. And so the founding year of the program. And my goal with this was to create a program that engaged students with issues in their community while teaching them soft skills that would be applicable in colleges, careers, and beyond. The essential question that we answered through the project was, how can we create a more equitable, resilient, and environmentally sustainable community? And shout out to Anthony, who's on this call, who helped us develop that question. And we really focused on the personal mindset and planning for success skill blocks. So the program had two parts, and the first part was a project management course where students learned the fundamentals of project management and had the opportunity to earn an industry-based credential in project management. The lessons in the course align closely with the Planning for Success soft skills. And on the slide, you can see some examples of some of the tools they learned how to use. I heard Aaron mention Scrum earlier. We use that as well. But up top, we've got a work breakdown structure, which was really just like breaking goals into actionable steps. One of the Planning for Success skills, where they took their big goal and broke it down into all the smaller pieces that they needed to accomplish. And that picture underneath is one of the examples of it's a Gantt chart, which is a type of schedule that they use to track their progress. And then the second part of the course was their actual capstone projects. So my goal with their projects was to really take a step back and help students to see what they were capable of completing on their own. And to really remove a lot of the supports that are in place in their other classes. So in addition to planning for success, we really focused on the personal mindset skills. As they were working to reach their project goals, they had a lot of independent work time. And so there were a lot of rubrics where teachers assessed them on these skills and they assessed themselves on the skills. And then they had multiple opportunities for reflection. So throughout these courses, I provided many opportunities for students to really reflect on the meaning of their work beyond just the projects. I pushed them to think about the impact on the community as well as the impact on themselves and how the skills that they were learning through this project could benefit them in the future. So rather than tell you all the lessons that I hope students walked away with, I'm going to let you see the students tell you themselves. So here's a video from their end of year presentations where students reflect on their soft skill strengths and areas of growth from the project. Nathan, I think you might need to unmute.
I ran the club meetings by myself with
So my strength was being able to complete tasks independently before asking for help.
I ran the club meetings by myself with minimal supervision from my sponsor, Steven.
So one of my strengths is adapting my approach. And this was in response to troubles communicating. Nami stopped responding. I was like, okay, what do I need to do? I decided to make a children's book. Miss Botello stopped responding. What do I need to do? I need to cut the interviews.
One of my strengths was striving to overcome barriers and setbacks.
So this is a little example of a spreadsheet that I made of all the things I would do. I was doing filming interviews. I had it right here when it was going to be done. I had editing videos.
So something that I grew in was most definitely managing my time. I am horrible at time management, but I feel like just doing this project alone has helped me better with time management.
Problem solving was a weakness for me because whenever I ran into a problem, I didn't want to ask for help. I wanted to do it myself.
And so something I ended up growing in was breaking those goals into actionable steps. And basically that meant was instead of thinking about one big goal, I had to think about really little goals.
I feel like I grew in that because I took it upon myself.
I now realize that I need to take on projects that I'm passionate about. I need to put my passion before anything else.
And then I'll say my personal life, because I think having a soft skill working in personal life is really awesome. If you're a person who's chaotic, if you're in college or something, and having those kind of soft skills that you learned here would be amazing for that.
So as you can see, students hopefully walked away from these projects with a much better understanding of themselves and the skills that they'll need to be successful in the future. And that's really thanks to all of the support from Youth Force. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Amanda. That is an incredible video. I'm looking at the chat and everybody expresses that same sentiment. That was awesome. Let's see. All right.
We're collectively fighting tears. We're big softies in here, it seems. I may not be the only one, but Amanda's presentation and the young people's learning is a great transition point because what we found in doing this soft skill work is that we have great outcomes that sometimes aren't exactly aligned to what we intended. So it's all about the students' takeaway. So we have 2 or 3 groups today who are going to share very briefly just about innovations that maybe didn't fit right into the reframe process that our teachers and educators use to build the soft skills into the work, but they were really notable outcomes. So I will hand that right over to Charmaine over at the Net Gentili to tell us just briefly about the kind of work she did regarding soft skills, and then y'all, I'll just ask you to push right on through for all 3 groups there.
Thank you, Emil. So yeah, my name is Charmaine Harris. I'm the College and Career Counselor at the Net Gentili. So if you're familiar with the Net, you may know that some of our students come to our school to serve expulsion time or transition back to their traditional school or get a diploma in a smaller setting without actually realizing the great offerings that our school have. So at the Net, we have a great internship program where students are placed in a wide range of partnerships throughout the city. So they range from building a house from the ground up, for example, with Uncommon Construction, to creating art installations with the Young Artist Movement, to even learning about food justice with the Grow That Youth Farm. So although any student can participate in an internship, not all students think that internships are cool and want to connect with this opportunity, even though I think they should. So this school year, we wanted to make sure that 100% of our student population got to experience soft skills and career exposure. So throughout the semester, myself and a colleague went into classrooms and did just that, introduce students to soft skills while they focused on planning for success, personal mindset, and social awareness. We did this by helping students set personal career goals, working with students to identify personal challenges and ways to move forward, and working as a team. So this school year, we partnered with Junior Achievements Employer Hub to bring a great panel of speakers into classrooms and to discuss their own journeys and pathways, took students to career fairs, completed career assessments, and attended college tours. So students got to see more of what the Net offered, besides just a select number of students who had internships. So the biggest highlight was being able to coach all of our students on soft skills outside of just the internship program. We also increased the number of seniors who had a solid next step plan for success. And it was also a way to highlight students, for them to step outside their comfort zones and connect with industry leaders in career fields that they aspire, especially when those industry leaders had journeys and education pathways that was much like theirs. So again, it was a highlight to have a goal of 100% of our student body connected with college and career team through soft skills and successfully implementing the goal to planning within career planning within the community practice. So thank you to Youth Force for providing that space for us.
Awesome, Charmaine. Thank you. And thank you for all the great work you did. All right, passing it on to Jasmine Hardy from New Harmony High.
Hi, guys. So I'll keep it short and sweet for today. I am an Algebra 1 teacher and advisor at New Harmony, as Nathan said. This year, I really focused on confidence, math confidence, collaboration, and critical thinking. A lot of my kids coming into my class, they struggled with just their confidence from being at home for 2 years during COVID. And it's been really hard for them. So during the time, they didn't really know how to interact with their peers. They were unsure of themselves. They didn't know how to advocate if they needed help. And so we really worked on those skills, and we did a lot of introspection and like just reflecting on what we learned and what we did and how we can grow and be better. And once they were able to change those mindsets, then they were able to flourish in my class by centering joy around math, because a lot of people do not have just a good background when it comes to math in general. So if we can go to the next slide. Okay. So, you know, we focused on a lot of group projects, bi-weekly self-reflections. I had them journal out their feelings because, I mean, feelings are really hard for us to elaborate on at any age and like really be vulnerable with that. And just letting them have breaks and have one-on-one time with me was really good for this. If we can go to the next one.
I don't think the third slide made it over here.
Oh no. Okay. Well, there was like a testimony from one of my students. Basically, she came from a school where she was always in very small groups and she had no math confidence. And she did not think that she would be able to get a good grade in algebra or flourish in algebra. And now she feels very confident. She was just like, you taught me that I don't always need to ask for help. Like I can work through it on my own. I can try to figure things out. And by doing that, she now has more confidence in herself. She can go out and help her twin sister and other peers of her class. And I think that it's truly amazing to see like where these kids came from at the beginning of the year and where they are now.
Great. Thank you so much. Passing it over to our team at Spark Mindset.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Coburn Greer, and I'm the Education Director for Spark Mindset. We are an entirely remote IT cybersecurity training company, and our soft skills team this year were our instructors, Joel and Norman, and our curriculum specialist, Lucy. And we can jump to the next slide. So we had to make a really big pivot this year due to the hurricane demic. One of the really cool things about our program is that because it is an apprenticeship program, our high school students are learning the exact same thing as our adult students. They're just doing it in 12 months versus a year. And so you can go ahead and skip to the next slide. We had to make two pivots. Once we first had to switch between the soft skills that we were originally going to cover. We had very specific skills that we targeted at the beginning of the year with input from our industry partners. But after meeting our learners, we very quickly discovered that we had to take a step back and start with some more foundational skills. And then again, after the hurricane demic, our goals of having 80% attendance and 85% assignment turn-in, weekly class discussions, we had to slim that down even more, but still wanted to make sure that we were focusing on communication and personal mindset with our kids. And so I will turn it over to our curriculum specialist, Lucy, to talk about what we created to do that.
Hi there. If you'll go to the next slide, please. So here are a couple of the resources that we made. In the top right there, we decided that we wanted to narrow down the standards that we were going to look at to 3. And then beyond that, create some substandards. We wanted something that we could see in class. So we wanted something that was measurable, something that was observable. And so we made that into its own list and its own rubric. And then from there, it was really simple to put that into the students' hands and say, okay, these are the specific behaviors that we want. We made a simple Google form that had the rubric on it. So on a weekly basis, they could look for themselves and decide, how do I feel like I did on this? And then additionally, we also made a Google form for teachers that was super simplified because I taught for 7 years. I know filling out forms is the worst part of teaching. So if you can make it easy, do it. But it had the individual behaviors that we were looking for with the students' names, so the teacher could have it up during class and simply check boxes for behaviors they were seeing. And then finally, there in the bottom right corner, we just made a template for our teachers so that they could write down the things that they saw during the week and write down what they saw from the student surveys, and then actually have a one-on-one conversation with students about how they thought they were coming, what discrepancies they saw, and what next steps would be good.
Thanks, Lucy. And I do just want to clarify quickly there, when we say behaviors, we more so mean soft skill workforce. Thanks. So again, because of the wonderfulness of this year, we didn't get the 80% attendance that we were hoping for. In fact, by the end of the year, we were at about half that at 44%. Again, this is an AP style course and it was an elective for many of our students. About half of our kids were also taking this as an after school program. And so when push came to shove, we found that a lot of them weren't coming to our live trainings. However, we did find that despite our attendance averages going down throughout the year, our grade averages went up. And we contribute that in large part to our focus on communication and giving students feedback with that specifically. And if we can jump to the last slide, I have a quick example for you. So while we wanted to make sure that students were asking questions and practicing communication in our discussion board, what we found is that they used it in a more practical way of just communicating with our instructors. So for example, we had one student, Jay, who had a really hard time at the beginning of the year and was failing the course. But after we started practicing soft skills in class, she became more communicative with instructors anytime she had to miss, or if she missed an assignment, or if she knew that here, for example, she was having electrical issues this day, and this was one of the days that students were working from home. She reached out proactively and was able to get her assignments and complete things before live class even happened that day. And so our biggest takeaway was this work is important, and even if you don't, get the results that you were expecting from young people, it's going to have a huge impact, and you will often find that in ways that you couldn't even expect, they'll take something away from it. I think the very last thing that I'll leave you with, even though it's not in our slides, is make sure that you are incorporating this into your core content. I feel like I can't emphasize that enough. As we had to slim down our content for the year, there were parts of what we wanted to implement that were created as additions that we simply weren't able to do. And because communication was so core to our communication with our professors, that's where we found the impact, even when we had to cut other things. And you never want to cut your soft skills. So thank you all. That's it for us.
Thank you so much, Coburn. And moving along, we have an outstanding team from Sarah T. Reed. This group is near and dear to my heart because I think they're the three most important people on any campus: the academic counselor, the social worker, and the dean of students. So to pass it over to Sarah T. Reed to take us home.
Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. My name is Isis Muhammad. I am the academic counselor at Sarah T. Reed.
Hello, everyone. I am Glenn Bell. I am the Director of Culture here at Sarah T. Reed High School.
And hello, everyone. I am Alicia Roby Ellis. I am the social worker here at Sarah T. Reed High School.
Okay, so we had an amazing video prepared for you guys today. And I definitely don't want to shift anything because I can share my screen, but I'm not gonna go there. But I just wanna, I guess, us as a team talk about our experience with soft skills this year. So of course, we all have different roles as school leaders here. And so as the academic counselor, one of the things that I worked with in reference to the building blocks was communication. Communication and planning for success. And so one of the things that I can say about this team and how we work together, we all helped each other grow and grow in not just the building block or the soft skill focus that we wanted to focus on for our students that we work with, but also just across the board. And they can attest to what their growth was as we work together. But as a counselor, my role is a little different from a disciplinarian. And so getting the disciplinarian to understand things from a counseling perspective definitely helps shape and shift Coach Bell's or Dean Bell's way that he interacted with students, and he can talk about that. But in reference to personal mindset, communication, and planning for success, I definitely can say I have three, not just one, but we can leave it there. With working with my specific students, I was able to help shift that mindset. And one of the things that I had to just be aware of were my own biases. When it comes down to this work, culturally, I did not think that my students would be able to adapt to this work. I didn't think that they would not just adapt to it, but just be able to be receptive of it. And they really showed me, they proved me wrong over this year. And I can see it in just the growth. We had our students do self-assessments through the MHA labs. They were able to assess themselves and where they felt like they stood. And just to see not just the students, doing their final assessment, but even staff to comment on the growth of a lot of the students that we worked with it's been truly amazing. So I'm gonna give it to my other dream team members, but yeah, go Reed.
I guess Ms. Ellis, I'll go next. Hello everyone. I am Coach Bell. I am the Director of Culture here at Sarah T. Reed High School. The soft skill that I would say that I implemented the most, or tried to implement the most, is the soft skill of problem solving. Just to give you a quick rundown, this is my first year in this role as the Director of Culture. So coming into this role, initially, I was kind of like strictly by the book. Okay, communicating with students. This infraction happened. Okay, when this infraction happened, this consequence was rendered. It wasn't really too much of a communication thing, an interaction thing. It was kind of, okay, you did this, now this is the outcome. And initially, it became a problem because it was like, okay, the kids aren't learning from their mistakes. They're not learning from their mistakes. It's only they're doing these actions and these are the consequences. So after, speaking with some of my colleagues, and then having this Youth Force NOLA introduce the soft skills project, it was like, well, let me take a dive into this information. So the one that really kind of stood out to me was the problem solving skill. So what I would start to do, instead of rendering all of these severe consequences, we started having more like restorative circles and conversations with some of our scholars. Okay, why are these infractions? Why are these decisions being made? Sitting down, talking to them, they started to understand, well, you know what, coach, it was not necessarily my action. Yeah, my action was egregious. Yeah, my action was wrong, but this is how it led up to this. If I would have changed this behavior, it wouldn't have led to this outcome. And then in communicating that information with so many different different scholars, you start to see like, well, you know what? It's not, the kids aren't just making poor choices per se, it's that they don't necessarily know. They don't see the things that led up to it. And I think with the problem solving soft skill, it kind of like helped not only them grow as students, but it helped me grow as a leader, because now I know, well, you know what, coach, you know what, Glenn, you don't have to go in and render all of these severe consequences. Like, let's sit down and let's talk. Let's talk to the individual. Let's talk to these kids to figure out different alternatives or different solutions to these problems that we're having. So I would say that was the soft skill that was very, very most impactful for me.
Okay, so I'll be brief. My soft skill that was impacted most by students was communication. I think I have very different roles from all of both my colleagues. I pretty much get the breakdowns and the meltdowns of all the students. They're coming to me after they've been disciplined or after they've gotten a bad grade of some sort. So we discovered the why and the consequences for some of those breakdowns. And in the beginning, I had a lot of students who couldn't communicate. It was just strictly breakdowns. They just cried, wouldn't talk, and then would leave after they finished crying. But now it's more of them articulating, hey, I know why I did this. I'm taking accountability for it. So I'm going to move forward with what I need to do and the consequences behind it. So they became better communicators in just addressing that why and what to do going forward. So it was great working with my colleagues. I think if we had not had this experience, we wouldn't have grown as much as we have together. So thank you, Youth Force NOLA, for getting us together as much as we were able to. And I look forward to implementing this, with more students to come in the years ahead. Thank you.
And I don't know if it was Ms. Greer who said it, but I don't want to misquote, but I know that like when it comes down to this work, I would just, one of the things that I wish that we could do is just implement this across our district. So here at Einstein, we have 2 elementary schools, a middle school and a high school. And I mean, I feel like that's a great work, but I really just would love to see this work, starting lower level. Like the younger we reach, our students, our children, our community with teaching these skills so that they can grow from it, the better it will become as they become adults. Like we don't want to teach this work as they become adults. We want to get them before they get there so that, you know, they have those skills and they're already learning it and growing it. So I wish we could implement this. Oh, yes, she did say it. Okay, cool. But yes, I agree with you. Like, I agree. I really believe that this work definitely should like start way before it gets to high school. And I really hope that, you know, we're able to start sparking those conversations at an earlier age so that we can start having these things happen for us. So yes, that was it. Sorry.
Well, you took a lot of what we were going to say to close and you just said it for us. So thank you, Isis. Quick couple of slides just to show the year by year impact. The blue is this year. You can see that we came back from the 2021 big, terrible COVID year with a vengeance. And as a result, we also have had an opportunity to reach a lot of students. So this is a collective impact that is reaching a lot of students, but as Isis just stated, it shouldn't just live in only a few pockets. It needs to be more across. So we are at time, we're over time. We see some folks dropping off the call. So I just want to actually get to our closing for a minute before this, just to let you know that in the 2022-23 school year, we will be doing monthly intro workshop webinars. So typically we do those quarterly. Next year, we're going to do those monthly as a webinar. So it'll be a pre-recorded, but this is for you all to be able to get folks who want to get a taste of it. They can do their own, they can get a taste of it quickly. And then we will transition our quarterly workshops to more design focused so that they can take that intro workshop and come to the actual workshop and start crafting it for their class. You can also book a professional development opportunity with myself and Ramel. We've visited a bunch of schools across the city, a bunch of training providers and opportunity youth organizations, youth organizations that serve opportunity youth. And, we can help you craft that PD that works for you. So if you're interested in the Soft Skills Cooperative, or if you're interested in attending some summer training, we have some dates set aside in July where we'll be hosting some training opportunities. We're going to drop a Google form in the chat right now, and this will also be included. Where's my chat? Sorry. This will also be included in the follow-up email, but this form just allows you to, if you are interested in signing up for a PD, or if you're interested in hearing more about our cooperative, and then this is more about our summer training series that I'm posting right now. Okay, now passing it over to Ramel.
The hot potato to close out. Well, we greatly enjoyed our time today. We hope you all greatly enjoyed and were inspired by our educators' stories of what they were able to implement and what our students took away from it. We look forward to coming back bigger and better in the next year. If you're interested in being involved, reach out, check out the links that Nathan left here, and be on the lookout for the video and resources and tools from all of these educators in about a week. We have some wrap up here to do, and we're going to get you a PDF with all of this entitled Soft Skills in Review. So thank you again for everybody who was able to hang on for the extra 5 to 10 here. We greatly appreciate everybody, including the educators and the young people. Have a great night, and we hope you've been inspired today.